सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome back. So today we are going to conclude the verses of chapter 6. So 43 to 47. And next week we will do a quick recap based on the topic. Because this chapter, the verses are not exactly in the order of the topic. It comes mix and matches. But so what we will try to do is all the 6 topics we will try to follow sequentially. So that covers the chapter 6, which is great. So where we left last week was an interesting topic. By verse 35, Krishna concluded the whole discussion on the meditation. The whole discussion on the meditation. And Arjuna had a question. If you remember, that was an interesting question. The question is, I am going to put a lot of effort in this path, but if I don't reach that final destination, what is going to happen? He used a technical term called yoga prashta. So yoga prashta means he had faith, but due to whatever is the reason, he could not achieve that final result. And if you really take, most of the people are yoga prashta. How many of the means, let's say that 100 people are striving for the spiritual path, maybe 1 or 2 reach the destination in this life. So is that going to be a problem? Should I have to start from the scratch? Or am I going to retain what I said? So Krishna gave answers. First thing is, he categorically said, there are 2 things he answered. The first thing he answered is, some people think that the time they spent on the Vedantic studies, it's not going to give as much punya like a prayer. So he negated that part. He said, this is equally divine, if not more. So this is as good as any charity. This is as good as any rituals you do or the prayer you do. So that's point number 1. And if you pursue this path, he gave 2 possibilities. The first possibility is, you will gain that much of punya. So in your next life, what is going to happen is, you are going to enjoy a better life experience. And when you reborn in a house with 2 characteristics. Shuchinam Shrimatam Dehe. That is the literal word he used. Shuchi means pure, dharmic, not a physically clean house. Yes, physical cleanliness will be there, but it will be supplemented by the mental cleanliness, which is commitment to dharma. On top of that, it will be prosperous house. So what does he meant by that is, a spiritual aspirant will get all the necessary conducive environment for continuation of his practice. That is option number 1. Possibility number 2 is, he will be born in the family of a yogi. Yogi meaning a practitioner itself. He didn't use the word Srimatam there. Sometimes you may not have money, but definitely you will be born in a family of yogis and you will pick up the thread from there and you will move forward. Whatever is the case, Krishna said, this is the best thing you can get. So whatever effort you put in this life, it will not be wasted. Rather, it will be complemented and supplemented. That's it. So he's going to elaborate that topic, maybe 3 more verses, and then he concludes the chapter by glorifying the importance of meditation. That's it. So we will continue. So we'll start with verse 43. That is the first verse we'll start.
Tatra tam buddhi samyogam labhate paurvadehikam yatate chatato bhuyah samsiddhau kuru nandana.
Just reiterating what he said in the previous verses. Again, these are not that complicated type of verses. We just need to understand. So the first point he tells is, Tatra tam buddhi samyogam labhade paruvadehinam. Here the word Tatra means now, meaning in this Janma, right? So in this Janma means what? I was a yogi and a yoga prashta, meaning I was committed in the previous life, but I couldn't finish my practice. And since I couldn't finish my practice, what happened? I had to reborn. So in this life, Tatra. So that is the word Tatra here means. Then he tells, Tan buddhi samyogam labhade. That's a very interesting word. Tam buddhi samyogam labhade. So buddhi means intellect. Samyogam means connection. So you will be given whatever maturity you have gained in the previous life. Labhate paurvadehinam. In the previous life, whatever spiritual maturity you gained, you will have that in this life. It's a big statement. Very important statement. So, Tatra buddhi samyogam labhate paurvadehinam. Paurvadehinam here indicates the previous lives. Tatra means in this life. Buddhi samyogam labhate. So, I get the spiritual maturity, or the spiritual maturity will continue with this life. Shankaracharya tells, the Shubha Vasanas cannot be destroyed. If you have a spiritual vasana in any of the life, it will be carried forward and it cannot be destroyed at all. So this is very important. So a yoga prashta will be born with a spiritual inclination. The maximum that can happen is it may not be manifested for some time, but eventually it will get manifested. Your parents and your friends and relatives, everybody may try to drag you away from the spirituality, but you will get it. You want to hear one story about that? How many of you know about Aravinda Ghosh, Maharshi Aravindo, who established the famous ashram in Pondicherry? He was a Bengali. He was born in Bengal, and his parents were completely against the Indian culture. They didn't want him to learn Indian culture. So they wanted him to learn materialism. They wanted him to learn that type of Western lifestyle. So what did they do? They sent him to England. This happened in British India. So they sent him to England and made him study there because the parents were extremely rich. So they could afford and they could send him. So Maharshi Aravindo, or the Aravinda Ghosh then, was never exposed to any of these teaching at that time. But what happened? When he heard the freedom movement of India, he attended a meeting and he thought, if I want to understand the freedom of my country, I don't know anything about its culture. He started reading. And when he started reading this Vedanta, it just came to him. And then what happened? The rest is history. He is considered as one of the greatest yogis in the modern world. He established his ashram in Pondicherry. Not only he was supposed to go to a Westerner, meaning somebody who means the parents wanted him to follow a Western lifestyle. He didn't adopt a Western lifestyle. He adopted the Eastern lifestyle. And in the process, he brought hundreds of Westerners into that Eastern lifestyle. If you go to Pondicherry ashram, even now you see most of his followers are French people, even now. So this is one example. Hundreds of examples can be given. Hundreds of examples. And each one of you, I'm 100% sure, you would not have been attending the Gita class regularly year after year without something in your mind. It may not have manifested at that point of time. But how many of you ever thought after coming to America, remember, each one of you are examples. You got connected with your culture, you started learning Vedanta, and people living in India may not be even studying these things. Studying with a commitment, studying with a passion. And you can recognize it. When you read this, when you study this, if you feel that something is dragging you towards it, understand that it is that momentum. The momentum you gained in the past, it is pushing you in a very positive sense. And whatever, means another thing is that even if you understand Gita, that itself shows that there is a momentum. So that's very important. So that is what Krishna tells. Tatra tam buddhi samyogam. That previous, it's not that your exact intellect is transferred here. No, that momentum. See, the spiritual path requires a momentum to run, means to flow, because otherwise what is going to happen? There is a push-pull from the materialism, and you have to have a momentum. See, when you launch a rocket, the rocket always will be pulled down by the gravity. So if the rocket do not have that escape velocity, what is going to happen? The rocket will fall down. So some of us may have a little bit of momentum, but occasionally they will attend one Gita lesson or read a little bit here and there, and their reading will stop there. But if you are consistently pursuing, if you are interested, even if you're coming and attending the classes on a weekly basis, when I talk, you hear, you feel excited about it. Or when you read a book, you're excited about it. That shows that momentum, you may not have whole knowledge about Vedanta, you may not have experienced, but you all will see that momentum inside you. Without that momentum, you would not have been sitting in the 12th class of this chapter. So that shows something is there. This is, I don't have to further explain. I'm sure you all will get it. Otherwise, see, there are people, I know there are people in one family, means a brother and sister. Brother might be into this, sister may not have even a taste of it. Hundreds of cases like that. So this is what it is. So Krishna tells, let's continue. That is the first two lines. And then he tells, so one more point, a nice observation. Shankaracharya made it. I'm paraphrasing it, but you would enjoy it. So if you take these words of the Lord, it implies something. What is he implies? Very important implication or a derived meaning out of it. A spiritual genius in this world, like a Vivekananda, or a Ramana Maharshi, or whoever it is, a spiritual genius in this life is a yoga prashta of the previous life. So when you say yoga prashta, you get a negative connotation. But a yoga prashta of the previous life can become a spiritual giant in the upcoming life. So some people, they always ask, Ramana Maharshi didn't go through a traditional Vedanta training, a 3-year course. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa didn't go through a traditional training. Yet, whatever comes out of his mouth is Vedanta. How does that happen? You may see some illiterate people. So, how can they become a spiritual giant? Answer is this. Logical answer. So, a spiritual giant of this life is certainly a yoga prashta of the previous life. Shankaracharya tells this because we don't want to see yoga prashta as something bad. It is good. So then he tells, right? He tells the next words. Yatate cha tayo bhuyaha samsiddho kuru nandanaha. So he tells yatate. Yatate means that person. It's a universal pronoun. Yatate. That person. Chata taha means thereafter, means in this life. Bhuyaha, become. Samsiddho. He eventually attains samsiddhi. Samsiddhi means the ultimate siddhi. The ultimate siddhi means what? Eventually, the self-realization. So you might have started your spiritual journey now. That spiritual journey get evolved in the upcoming life. And then eventually what is going to happen? You will gain that ultimate destination. So don't worry. Even if you cannot make it, nothing will go waste. Another question, right? So typically, those who knows the law of karma. This is just a corollary or an additional point. Law of karma. How does the next life will be determined? We all know that there is a pool of karma. There is a repository of karma called as, remember the different pools of karma. You have
Sanchita karma.
Sanchita karma, you have Agami karma, you have the Prarabdha karma. There are different types of karma. So the Sanchita karma, which is the global pool of dharma, what exactly determines, what would determine the weightage of the karma that is going to determine your next life? So the karma theory tells that, see, if you follow something very seriously in this life, if your life is predominantly directed towards a particular type of action, that karmas will dominate. So it's not remember, a subset of karma will be pulled from the Sanchita karma, and that subset of the karma will be influenced heavily by the predominant focus of this life. So don't worry. You might have done a lot of mistakes in the previous karma, but now if you continue the spiritual practice, that will skew or that will influence your next life, and it will be fine. Again, hundreds of examples this cannot be proved, but definitely this is believable. See, the greatest musician who started composing the symphony at the age of 5. You know who it is?
Mozart?
Yes, Mozart. You visited his place now.
Yes.
So at the age of 5, he could compose symphony. How is that possible? You may not be able to prove the karma, but you will have to agree that he has the knowledge to compose a symphony. I heard about a child who could draw millions of pictures at the age of 5. Sad, this child passed away. This child's name was Clint. This Clint is known for his paintings. Anything he heard about, 5-year-old child, if you tell something, he could visualize it. Genius. The law of karma tells that such people, life is shaped by previous karma. How do you think the world could produce such geniuses? Every artist, like a Muhammad Rafi or Yeshudas, how is it possible? This is the explanation the law of karma gives. So, yatato cha tato bhuyaha. He will, whatever he had in the past, he will continue, and eventually, samsiddhau kurunandana, he will attain the ultimate destination or the moksha. Again, very simple, nothing major. Don't worry, your work, the momentum you gain in your spiritual life, it will be continued, and you will be in the next life, you will get that taste. To make that point very clear, Lord Krishna gives a little bit more clarification on what he just said, right? So he tells, let's go to verse 44.
पूर्वाभ्यासेन तेनैव ह्रियते ह्यवशोऽपि सः जिज्ञासुरपि योगस्य शब्दब्रह्माति वर्तते.
Again, just to remove any doubt, he tells tenaha. Tenaha means by this. By this means it is the because of this process. Because of this process means since the spiritual momentum you gained in the previous life, you will gain here what? Purvabhyase. The momentum you gained because of the purva means previous, abhyasa means practice. So the spiritual practices you have undertaken in the previous life. He tells eva he, alone. Saha means he. Then because of the spiritual practices you did in the previous life. And Krishna tells, avashaha api hriyate. So he will continue or he will practice these practice in this life. Avashahi, helplessly. He will be attracted or unknowingly or like automatically or helplessly, he will be put into that path. So purva abhyasena cha eva. Because of that spiritual practices you have undertaken in the previous life, hriyate, he will advance. How? Avashahi, certainly. Avashahi means helplessly. Like an Aurobindo, you may put him in somewhere else, but you will practice. Those who read Bhagavad, you might have heard of the story of Prahlada. Prahlada was the son of whom? Hiranyakashipu. And what was the settings and the opportunities he got? going against the Lord. But exactly how he went, 180 degree. I know hundreds of stories like this. This is what it is. Swami Vivekananda himself. He was born in a materialistic family. Of course, his mother was a little bit of devotee of God, but he was sent to learn English education. And once he has the basic education, what was the first thought came to his mind? Who is God? So look at that. Hriyate hi avashopi. Helplessly he will be dragged. Each one of you may not have planned to study the Vedanta. Most of the religious people, what they do, at best they will go to temple every week, give a donation, maybe do a puja in their house once in a year. That's it. From there, how we develop this interest? Something dragged us there. This is what it is. And then he continued. He tells, Jijñāsurapi yogasya. So, and then he even means he tells, Jijñāsu here means he will be somebody who is desirous to gain this knowledge. So, Jijñāsu api. So, he means this Jijñāsu, the one spiritual aspirant who was a yoga prashta in the previous life, becomes a spiritual aspirant the next life or the upcoming life. Then Jijñāsurapi yogasya, meaning the spiritual aspirant of yoga. And then he tells Ati Vartate. Ati Vartate means you can see Shabda Brahma Ati Vartate. That is how you split the word. Jijñāsu api yogasya. So api means even, Jijñāsu meaning desirous of knowledge, yogasya means of yoga. So even as the aspirant who is desired to gain the knowledge of yoga, he tells Shabda Brahma Ati Vartate. Ati Vartate means goes beyond, and goes beyond what? Shabda Brahma. That is a technical term. Shabda Brahma technically means Vedas, especially the Karma Kanda of the Vedas. That is what typically people use as Shabda Brahma. That needs a little bit of explanation. So Shabda Brahma here means the Karma Kanda of the Veda. What is Karma Kanda of the Veda? What is the goal of conventional karma? Materialistic desire. Most of the materialistic people, they are not lazy people. They work hard. They put their intelligence for what? For gaining the finite result. There is nothing wrong in that. So that is why he said Shabda Brahma. The first portion of the Veda, if you take, they are all rituals. And rituals for what? For various material benefit. So the Vaidika karmas, you have to understand, they are a symbolic representation of the Laukika karma. For example, if you are praying Goddess Saraswati, it means what? I am desirous of wealth, I am doing a yajna. If you translate that into the modern life, somebody who is working in Wall Street, like you are putting money, you wanted to gain, you are an investor, you wanted to gain money. There is nothing wrong in that. But what exactly is his ultimate goal? A millionaire or a billionaire? So a spiritual aspirant, yes, he may make money, but he definitely goes beyond that. The goals of the conventional karma, he goes beyond that. That's it. That doesn't mean that he don't want money. No, his goal is much larger, wider. That's it. So that's what this verse means. Another beautiful verse. So now let's continue. Let's go to verse 45.
प्रयत्नात्यतमानस्तु योगी संशुद्ध किल्बिषः अनेकजन्म संसिद्धः ततो याति परां गतिम्.
Prayatnat tatta yatamanastu. So, tu means whereas. Yogi samshuddha kilbishaha. Yogi here means spiritual aspirant. Yatamana, the word means the one who makes effort. You might have seen this word in Yoga Sutra. The one who makes effort is known as yatamana. Yatamana, see, it comes from the word yajna. Yajna means effort. The one who makes yajna is yatamana. Yati. Yati also comes from that root. It means the one who makes effort. So yatamana, the one who makes effort, that yogi who makes effort in the spiritual field, what happens? Then prayatnat, yatamana, because of his effort, because of his will, because of his effort, what happens? Eventually, samshuddha kilbishai. So, yogi samshuddha kilbishai. Kilbishai here means all the impurities or the mental impurities. He will be freed from all the impurities. Aneka janma samsiddhau. So, he will clean his mind from all the impurities he has gained from multiple lives. And then he said, what? Tata yati param gatim. Tata means then, yati means gains, param means ultimate, gatim means end. So he will clean his mind and eventually he will reach the ultimate goal. Prayatnat yatamanastu, the one who is striving or putting effort. Yatamana means vigorously or diligently or hardworking yogi. Then yogi, then he tells samshuddha kilbishai. He will be purified from all the sin. Here means what? Impurities of the mind. That's it. Sin in Hinduism is not the original sin. It is the impurities of the mind. All the impurities of the mind will be purified. For aneka janma samsiddhau. So from all the previous life, whatever he gained, it will be purified. And after a few lives, what is going to happen? Tato yati param gatim. So it's a continuous improvement. You don't need to be 100%. You don't need to complete everything. It is a slow, continuous improvement. You will attain that. Nothing will go waste. So that clarified Arjuna's question. What happens to yoga prashna? Now Krishna concludes this chapter with 2 verses. Obviously, he taught the meditation and this yoga to Arjuna. He has to say that this yoga which I taught you is superior than most of the other spiritual practice you do. So, therefore, be a yogi. And then he tells, out of all the meditation technique I taught, which meditation technique is the best? Out of all the spiritual practices, he tells yoga is definitely superior. Superior in the sense that is the most beneficial practice. That's all. That doesn't mean that other practices are not bad or anything like that. So this, he just praises yoga. And then finally, he praises within yoga what exactly is the ultimate practice or the highest type of practice. So let's listen to that. Verse 46.
तपस्विभ्योऽधिको योगी ज्ञानिभ्योऽपि मतोऽधिकः कर्मिभ्यश्चाधिको योगी तस्माद् योगी भवार्जुन.
Tasmat yogi bhava Arjuna. Tasmat means therefore. Arjuna, bhava means be, yogi. So therefore, be a yogi, be a spiritual practitioner. Why? He gives the reason. He tells, tapasvibhyo athikyo yogi. Yogi athikya tapasvibhya. So yoga, this yoga I taught you, it is better or it is more beneficial in your spiritual path than the conventional tapas. What is conventional tapas? In Purana you see, somebody, Ravana goes to some in a forest, he meditate upon Brahmaji, Brahmaji will come. Why? What is the purpose of him doing the tapas? Again for bhoga and aishwarya. Tapas means, that is a symbolic representation. Tapas means what? You put consistent effort to gain a goal. So if you want money, you put consistent effort, you get money. If you want power, you put consistent effort, you want to get a promotion, you do everything you can. If you are lucky, you will definitely get it. But the tapas will accelerate the probability of getting that. So rather than putting tapas on the finite things in the world, the same set of activities, if you do it as yoga, it is much better because it is going to help you to evolve. Then, so tapas compared to the general tapas, this knowledge is very important. Jnanibhyo athikyaha. Shankaracharya jumps in and clarifies this. Here the word jnani means not the Brahma jnani, the conventional wisdom. It is good to study physics. It is good to study chemistry. Any intellectual knowledge is fantastic. But a yogi has more spiritual possibilities than an intellectual person. The third thing is karmibhyo dhikyo yogi. It tells conventional karma. Like, I'm only interested in conventional day-to-day life. Yeah, that is not bad, but yogi is again better because yoga will transcend all that into his spiritual growth. So yoga is very important. Whether you do tapas, where do you seek knowledge, whether you do karma, whatever it is, do it as yoga. You can do any karma as not yoga also. Even the best karma, right? Let's say that you want to help somebody. You can do that. The Panchamahayajna itself, Manushya Yajna, you want to help somebody. You can do that as a mere karma. The difference is what? What makes a karma yoga? It has to be proper work. It has to be with proper attitude. So if my attitude aspect is missing from that karma, even the best karma, it will not be a yoga, and that will not help me a lot in the spiritual practice. Of course, it gives you some punya, and that, but if you do it as like a yoga, it can give you tenfold results. So out of all the spiritual practice, you can do bhakti. He didn't call out bhakti here, but that also implies here. If you do bhakti, you can do the whole prayer. Every day you can do Vishnu Sahasranama. Every day you can do some prayer. But if you do the prayer as a mere karma, what happens? I am obsessed with the results. I definitely want some results. And if I don't get the results, I get upset. If I do the bhakti like that, a lot of people do the bhakti like that way only. Right? In the 7th chapter, he will tell, Krishna will tell, Artho Jijnasu Arthati Jnani. So those cases, that bhakti will definitely give you some punya, but the punya you gain and the spiritual progress you gain through the practice of yoga is far more superior. Therefore, yoga is superior to conventional tapas. Yoga is superior to conventional knowledge seeking. Yoga is superior to conventional karma. Therefore, be a yogi. So you see this in the Bhagavad Gita. Throughout Bhagavad Gita, the practice that Krishna emphasizes most is the yoga. More than 150 times he asked Arjuna, practice yoga, practice yoga, practice yoga. This is it. So out of all spiritual practices, what Krishna recommends to all the common poor people is yoga. Yoga doesn't mean that it is the Hatha Yoga, right? So some people interpret this as Hatha Yoga only. Of course, Hatha Yoga is part of that. Yoga in its larger context means it's a spiritual practice which satisfies those 5 definitions we already gave. That's it. So if you do that karma with a proper attitude, that karma becomes a karma yoga. So this is very important. So therefore, be a yogi. Now, the law means yoga in this chapter. If you take this chapter, yoga means meditation, because that is the theme of this chapter. If you take yoga in the 3rd chapter, that is karma yoga. If you take yoga in the 12th chapter, that is bhakti yoga. If you take yoga in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, yoga is meditation. A lot of people think that it is Hatha Yoga. Not at all. It is meditation. And if you take yoga in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, that becomes Hatha Yoga. That's it. All this is different, but with a common thing. So now Krishna tells, we learned a lot of meditation practices, but what is the highest form of meditation? Can you guess? What is the highest form of meditation? Nididhyasanam. Nididhyasanam is the meditation. So that is what he is going to conclude. Let's go to that final verse.
Yoginaamapi sarvesham madgatenantaraatmana shraddhavan bhajate yo mam same yuktatamo matah.
Yaha meaning universal pronoun. So yaha shraddhavan with faith. Faith means not blind belief, but means you take this as correct and you put effort in that direction. That is Shraddha. And then what? Antaratmana madgadena. A mind that is completely absorbed on me. Krishna tells, a person whose mind is completely absorbed on me, bhajate meaning contemplates, mam, me. So a person whose mind is completely absorbed on me and contemplates upon me, saha, yaha, saha. That is Sanskrit usage, right? So he, mataha, in my opinion, he didn't say anything more. He said, in my opinion, me mataha, in my opinion, he said, yuktatama. He is the most advanced, sarvesham, among all yogis, yoginam api. So he tells, yoginam api means out of all, sarvesham yoginam api, that is the first line, out of all the yogis, that yogi, right? Yaha shraddhavan antaratmana madgadena bhajate mam. The one whose mind is completely absorbed on me and contemplates upon me, in my opinion, he is considered as the greatest of all yogi. So if you understand properly, right, when we started the chapter, when you start the meditation, what is, see, from the associative thinking, our first goal is to gain control over the mind. Remember, we had that long discussion where T1, T2, T3, T4, that is the thought pattern, comes to the mind. The first goal is to make sure that that is restricted to T1. And that T1 could be a flower, that could be anything of Lord's manifestation, the imminent form of the Lord. But once you gain that skill, what is that skill? The skill of getting into samadhi. So this is a prerequisite for nididhyasana. You should have the ability to keep our mind for a consistent period of time in the object of meditation. Then what is going to happen? If you substitute that T1 with the Atmakara Vritti, with the nature of the Lord or with the nature of mind, what happens? You will gain the highest possibilities. So we talked about this. Shravanam and Mananam is going to give you the Jnanam, and the highest form of meditation. When you say highest form, don't think that it is superior or anything like that. The advanced, it's not advanced, the matured stage of meditation, which is going to give you the Jnana Nishta, is Nididhyasanam, and that Nididhyasanam is the highest form of meditation, best form of meditation, and that is the penultimate stage of the enlightenment, and that is what he said. But if you remember, what is the style of Bhagavad Gita? The last one or two verses he used as a connection to the next chapter. Remember, the 5th chapter, the last verse was talking about pranayama, which is a preparation for this meditation. And this, he tells, when you sit and think about the Atmakara Vritti or the Brahmakara Vritti, what does that mean? For you to contemplate upon the Brahma Akara or the nature of me, you need to know who I am. That is what I'm going to teach you in the next chapter. So the 7th chapter, we are going to understand, Krishna is going to explain who he is. Means those who studied 7th chapter, that is the theme. So those who do not understand who is Ishvara, those who think that he is a blue boy of Vrindavan, those who think that he is pretty much limited, or those who means he has human feeling, he is somewhere sitting in the cloud, above the cloud. That's not the Ishvara Krishna is talking. When he say me, that me is not referred to Mr. Krishna as something else. What is that something else? We are going to see in the next chapter. The two forms of God, which is transcendent and the other one is immanent. And what exactly is the Atmakara Vritti needs to do? That topic is expounded elaborately in the next chapter, which is probably one of the most interesting chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, because that is where Krishna tells, who am I? Who am I means, who is Krishna? Now, what happens is, when Krishna tells, some people interpret this, I'm not judging anybody, but some people just read this verse and interpret that those who meditate upon Krishna as Mr. Krishna, they are the highest form of yogis. Those who meditate upon Shiva is not good. That's not what Krishna said. That is fanaticism, fundamentalism. If any doubt, if you have any trace of the doubt, the next chapter, Krishna explains who is he. So, if you take this verse and see that I am the only God, no, that is not at all said here. Okay, so that concludes this chapter. Next week, what we will do is we will do a full recap. Remember the 5-6 topics, general practices of meditation. So we will consolidate all the verses related to general practice and quickly scan through that. Specific practices, preparations you need to do for meditation. We will go through that. Then we will go through the actual process of the meditation, Dhyana Swarupam. Then we will go through the benefits of that meditation. Then we will cover the obstacles and the solution. What are all the obstacles and challenges? And then we will touch the final topic, which is the Yoga Prashna. These are the 6 topics covered in this chapter. If you just think about this 6th topic, it's very easy. It's very easy to remember the content of a Bhagavad Gita chapter if you just think about these are the topics and what exactly Krishna said in that verses. So this is the 6th chapter, 6 topics, and we will go through each one of that separately next week. So we'll do the closing prayer and then we can have 10 minutes Q&A. Bhuanaji, would you be able to do the closing prayer? I think she's on mute. Anu, would you?
Yeah. Shall I close the chapter and do the closing prayer?
Yeah. Please close the chapter and we'll do that. Next week we'll chant the whole chapter, but definitely please do the closing verses of the chapter.
Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Atma Samyama Yogo Nama Shashthodhyayah. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi